to Tuesdays with Paula. I'm Paula K Bronte, your Master Rapid Eye Technician, and today our topic is speaking your truth. And there are lots and lots. I could do a whole day workshop on that one. I'm going to begin by explaining why this subject particularly is so dear to me. As a Rapid Eye Technician, one of the things that I do with every client is help them get to a place in their life where, first of all, they recognize what's true, and secondly, they are able to express it in a way that works for them and so that they can be heard. Now, many of the clients that come to me are people that have come from abuse, particularly sexual abuse as a child, different kinds of emotional or mental abuse as a child or even in a marriage. And so all of these people really have learned how not to speak their truth. And so in Rapid Eye, we have two parts of the model. One is that we will help release off the neural pathways, all those places in your brain where that old programming of I can't speak my truth because if I do, I'll get in trouble. I can't speak my truth because if I do, I'll be unloved. Right? And many of these implants are real typical from people that have had abuse and different kinds of trauma in their lives. So, of course, we release all that unprocessed untruth from the brain, the actual brain itself. We're going to be talking today a lot about brain activity. And then we replace it with new imprints, new impressions, new perceptions, new ways of being, new truths. Much of what we talk about today is going to be truth with the small t, right? The misperceptions. And so with Rapid Eye, we have two parts of the model, as I was saying. First, we will get those neural pathways cleaned out and get the information in there, the experiences, the trauma that keep you from even knowing what's true for you, much less expressing it. We get those processed and just get them out of the brain, right? They're in little storage units, they're clusters in the brain, and we just empty out those storage units. And then the second part of Rapid Eye is life skills. And one of the big life skills is really learning how to speak your truth. Right? There's 7 of them, actually. It's thought, perception, cause and effect, choice and accountability, health and healing, abundance and gratitude, harmony and rhythm. And choice and accountability and cause and effect particularly are really big, big parts of being able to speak your truth. Because when we speak something that is not true for us, it can often be a cause of an effect that we don't desire. But we don't have the skills, we don't have the ability, we don't have the mental and emotional health to actually, in the moment, know and speak what's true for us. Now, that's one aspect of our topic today. There'll be another aspect that I'll get to in the second half of this. But first, let's talk about this inability to speak truth. So, sometimes we think we really are. We're with someone, a loved one, let's say, a husband, a wife, a relative, a good friend. And as a child, many of us, whether we went through abuse or not, are pretty well trained. One of the first skills that children will develop is in a very astute ability to perceive what someone wants to hear. A child knows almost innately, okay, if I do this or say this, it'll make mommy happy and she'll love me. And if she loves me, I'm safe. Right? It all comes down to survival. It's part of being a human being, is that our most primal desire and need is survival. And so as children, we really learn how to manage and control and manipulate the people around us so that we can feel safe and know we're going to survive. And that happens through being loved. And so we learn very young how to say what other people want us to say and be the way other people want us to be so that we can have that reward of feeling safe and loved. And unless we're in an environment, a family that's functional enough to recognize this and really help the child individuate and learn who they really are and that their truth, what's really true for them, if they're mad or angry, it's okay. You know what, I get that you're mad. Now let's see what to do with that anger, right? So that it doesn't harm anyone. Let's see what's under that anger, right? If we have a functional enough family that helps children work with what's really true for them, then we can grow up being more able to speak our truth. But that doesn't happen often enough from my experience, right? I'm talking just from my 20 years of experience as a Rapid Eye Technician. So when we have a relationship with someone and we really feel like our life depends on keeping this relationship safe and close and, connected, right? There's lots of codependence that goes along with history of abuse. So when we're in that place, we get pretty good at knowing what the other person wants to hear. And what happens after a while, without us even knowing it, is that we start stuffing and stuffing and stuffing what's true for us. And at some point, in my experience, that volcano explodes. And then often we experience divorce or affairs, or a family member, becomes estranged. There's all kinds of reactions from that. And so, or mental breakdowns. I have a little coach back here. She's so great. I love it. Kate Allen, you all know Kate. She's coaching me. Or people have mental breakdowns. That's a big piece of it, right? So what we really want to do is begin to, number one, take a look and see how much of what we think is true for us is really our innate ability to pick up what's true for other people. Empaths, so many empaths come to see me these days, and it's hard for them to know what's their stuff and what's somebody else's, what's their truth and what's someone else's truth. So the first thing is to start practicing, and it could be as simple as just saying, okay, is this true for me? There's a wonderful teacher called Byron Katie, and one of the things she teaches is to ask yourself, is this true? Is this really true? Can I know this is true? And start questioning what you think is truth. Is this really true for me? And if it's not, and it's true for someone else, you can honor that. And then take the second step to start discovering what is true for you. Give yourself permission to at least know for yourself what's true for you. This is where writing can become very helpful. When we start journaling, there are parts of our brain that get stimulated that are not normally stimulated, and particularly writing by hand. So do a little writing. If the word journaling turns you off, okay, don't use that word. If you like it, then start journaling. But just write questions to yourself. Right? Here's the issue that's happening in this relationship, and it can even be a relationship with your own profession, right? With who you are in the world. Is what is true for me? Is this true? Is that true? Start questioning your beliefs. There's a great bumper sticker that says you can't believe everything you think. Right? So the first step is to start questioning, is this really true for me? For me. And start writing about how you can uncover what's true for you. Is this true for me? Write it down. Is this true for me? Is this true for me? And start going through the possibilities until you feel deep within yourself, yeah, that's the one. That's the one. Right? So before you sit down to do this particular writing or this exercise, it would be wonderful to stop for 10 minutes, 10 seconds, and just breathe into your body and get grounded. Grounding is everything. How we perceive the world is based on whether or not we're grounded and connected to that electrical circuitry that I talk about so often. So take a moment and just breathe out of the bottoms of your feet into the earth and back up through your body, and just center yourself. And ask your higher self, please help me connect with what is true for me, with a capital T. And then you sit down and do your writing. Okay, now we're going to shift to the other aspect of speaking your truth that occurred to me the other day, and that's what really caused me to have this particular topic today. So we want to honor someone. So this is when someone comes to us and they start talking to us, right? And usually it's a negative. We are so trained, I mentioned this last week, we're so trained to talk to each other about our stories, our complaints, how awful this is, my marriage is terrible, my husband does that, my kid does this, I have no money, whatever it is. We tell our stories, and we tell them over and over and over again. And is it true when someone talks to you about that? If you have a friend, or if you do some coaching work with someone, or a family member, you want to honor what's true for them, right? So you want to hear them out and honor it. However, you can start asking the question for that person and for yourself, is there another truth? Are you only seeing what you think is true from the old habitual viewpoint? And this is where the brain activity comes in. So if you cut your brain open, there are billions of highways in there. They're called neuropathways. And they each have a particular theme. So every time, let's use the word abuse, every time something that even particularly seems or feels like it could be in the realm of abuse, you're going to have particular neuropathways. Right? There's going to probably be one or two real dominant ones that are going to just start firing. It's a brain activity. Oh, that person looks like the uncle that sexually abused me for 5 years when I was a kid. boom, that neural pathway starts firing. And your thoughts and your perception is dominated by that neural pathway. And so that uncle then becomes, that person becomes totally demonized because you're projecting that that's your uncle that abused you. But it's simply a neural pathway, an association that happened that opened that neural pathway. So whenever we're speaking a story to somebody, right, you're having lunch with your girlfriend and all they can do is just bitch and bitch and bitch about how horrible things are. Those are neural pathways that are firing for them. And there's reward, right? They get the attention, whatever it may be. There is a reward to telling our same story over and over again, even for ourselves, because what it will do is activate different chemicals in the brain and the system, endorphins and different feelings that make us feel rewarded in some way physically by complaining and telling our negative stories. So it's a habit and a pattern. And what we can do, because the brain is so plastic, it's very easy to create new neural pathways. It's very easy to tap into other neural pathways that are dormant. And when we start tapping into these neural pathways that are dormant, we start tapping into the superpowers that we have that are dormant as well. So when you're having lunch with someone and they're telling you the story, I have something called a 5-minute rule. I let them talk and tell their story, 5 minutes. Yep, yeah, I know that was horrible. I get it. I really understand. Oh, I'm so sorry you had to go through that. 5 minutes is up. Now what's another truth in this situation? Because every story will have at least 2 truths. The one that makes you feel bad and the one that makes you feel good. So you spend your 5 minutes processing and letting that negative come out so you know what you don't want, right? And both of you, because you don't really want to hear it and they don't want to be living it anymore. So now it's clear what you don't want. The other truth is, what do you want? What is in this situation, this story, that's true, that can feel good? And you start moving into, even if it's baby steps. Well, you know, other marriages that have been through these kinds of challenges heal and make it sometimes. Maybe ours can. Or other marriages that go through this, they have breakups and people go on and live wonderful lives. Maybe that's what will happen to us. Or maybe I really can see something good in him that I'm not seeing right now. You know, I could sit right now and name 10 things about him that are really wonderful, instead of spending the rest of this lunch talking about the one thing that bothers me. There are always ways to see more than one truth. And this is where that little practice that I talked about a few weeks ago, probably a few months now, the 3 A's, my 3 A's, access, activate, actualize. So when you're in the middle of a story that doesn't feel good, and you're stuck in it, and you don't know how to get out, you can stop for a minute and recognize, right? Consciousness is everything. Become conscious and aware of how you got into the funk you're in. It'll almost always trace back to a thought pattern, a story you've been telling. So look at the story and say, okay, you know what? I'm going to shift from this. Take a minute and do the tapping technique that I've taught you. I trade in my blank for blank, do a little eye work, take a minute, change state, take a walk, go out into nature and move into a place of appreciation, really loving and appreciating what you see around you, and then come back and access a different truth. And usually accessing a different truth in this situation is going to come from appreciation. There's another A. Finding something in this situation to appreciate. A different truth. And then from there what happens is that you begin to activate within your brain new synapses different synapses that are firing through new neural pathways. And so you start accessing a whole different biological response to the story that's being transformed now from what you don't want into what you do want. And if you can stick with that for 17 seconds, 64 seconds, if you can stick with it for most of the day, then you begin to actualize a new truth. So when you're in the midst of the horrible story that doesn't feel good, you can ask yourself, you know what, is this really the truth? Yeah, it is. If you look at it, this is what's happening. However, I know that if I walk around it and look at it from a different place, there's a different truth there that I can find. And so you take out your 3 A's. You start to access the new truth. And then you start to activate the the different ways that you can respond to that new truth. Milk it. Abraham Hicks tells us that when you get into that place that feels great, milk it. Find every single thought you can, add every character to the story, every aspect to the story you can that just makes you feel better and better. And then you will begin to see this new truth actualize. And that's where the superpowers come in, because what you're doing is creating a new neural pathway. The brain is so plastic, it's really easy to chisel a new groove in there. It just takes a little time and effort. Right? We're so used to habitually doing our old patterns that we don't, first of all, we don't even know we can do it differently, and that's why I'm here to tell you that you certainly can. And now, secondly, it just takes a little bit of that desire to put the effort in, because it's all about feeling better. When you can speak and see a truth from that place that feels better, then you will actualize a new reality. And you don't have to change the husband, you don't have to change the kid or the boss. You go through this process and you start actualizing a new truth for yourself, and they will respond. You'll start to see people react differently. I've had so many people come in and tell me, you know, what we worked on was how badly they felt about the brother that hadn't called them for 15 years. And then they come in the next session and say, you know, 2 days after we had a session, my brother called me. I mean, people will feel and respond to what your truth is. So my message today is to really start asking yourself, what's true for me? Is this really true for me? And then take that time and go right up into your spirit. Go up to that highest place within you that you can possibly access. And connect with the highest truth for you. And breathe it into your body. And know that even if you have come from a background of extreme and severe abuse, these changes are possible for you. Particularly with Rapid Eye. That's why I've dedicated my life to this profession, because I see people transform every single day that come from horrific trauma. The brain is really here to serve us, and we can use the brain and the body and the spirit to create a new truth. So start believing and knowing that you have superpowers, and those superpowers are your ability to create and live a new truth for yourself. And actualize a life that you really want. And then that radiates from you to everyone. And you start to see your whole world light up. And everybody else in it. It's pretty fun. Okay, that's my message to you today. Bless you all. If you would like to contact me, feel free to send a comment on Facebook. My email is Paula K, the letter K, Bronte @gmail.com. And I also want to remind you one more time. Here we go. This is my book, A Call to Mastery, Living the Art of Ascension. And it is primarily a guide to connecting with the spiritual powers that you have. The ones that you know about, it gives you ways to help really develop them, and spiritual powers that you may not know you have. It's a way to connect with the highest part of yourself. And it's a fun little book. It's actually available as well as hardcover on Kindle, and there's an ebook version too. And you can look up Amazon, and they're both on there. Okay, so I will see you next Tuesday. Thank you so much for your time and attention. And remember to live and breathe and love your truth. Bye-bye. Love you guys.